So I'll give you a little bit of overview of our company. My name is John Coghill, co-founder of Tradeforce Tech, and we started our business about 6 years ago. Really, frankly, Mark and I have known each other for quite a while, and our views, I think, are perfectly aligned when it comes to you're in business to make money. You can't do good unless you're making profits. You can't do good at the expense of profits because then your organization isn't around to do more good. Our core business is about helping our customers save energy. We're moving into general resource conservation, but the bottom line is, we were motivated by a number of things that were going on in the world, but that sort of overarching story of, we have a climate crisis. I'll use that word with quotes around it because crisis has got a time component to it. Nobody really knows what that is. But in the end, we need to do something about carbon footprint reduction. Generally, I'm not at all confident that any of these problems are going to get solved by committees and the UN or any government, that kind of thing. And like Mark, I have a background in the tech sector for the last 30 years, and I've learned these big complex problems get solved by a lot of people doing a lot of little things. It's not like a big orchestrated solution that gets happened, right? So you do something a little bit interesting, you do something a little bit interesting, and we chip away at it. So we started the company, no CSR intent whatsoever. It was about starting a company, helping companies cut down on their energy conservation and therefore reduce their carbon footprint. But honestly, it was not our pitch. We didn't go to customers and say, you need to do something about carbon footprint because the sky is falling. I look at the triple bottom line differently. We do have, that's a slide in our corporate pitch deck when we're talking to people. And depending on, I don't want to offend anybody in the room, but the tree huggers tend to put the environment at the top and say, you got to do something about the environment. And then that's good for your business. And then, that's good economically. And it's like, no, I see it the other way around. You need to deal with the economic part first, and the employment part. And then what falls out of the bottom is what's good for the environment. So I will echo what Mark said initially, excuse me, especially when you're starting your company, you got to make payroll. You got to pay the rent. You got all those things you have to do, and the social responsibility when you're starting is really about paying your employees and making sure that organization is sustainable. People come to work because it's a job, frankly. I mean, let's face it. Nobody in your company, or very few people in your company, are going to be as excited and enchanted and enthralled with what you're doing as the founders are. So you have to recognize that. So that first responsibility is to get the business to a point where it's sustainable. And then if you're lucky enough and there is an alignment with what you're doing, and you can find a genuine angle, I don't mean that in a sort of a manipulative way, but an alignment of what you believe and what your company's doing, and you're lucky enough to do that, then you've got a great opportunity. So what happened in our journey? As I said, we do energy conservation retrofit projects. So we're a contractor. We actually do the work for the customers. We send tradespeople out, good paying jobs. We employ 35 people, and a big part of that obviously is in today's day and age. A lot of our customers started asking about, so when I save this much in natural gas or this much in electricity, what's the greenhouse gas carbon equivalency? And so, okay, that's interesting. We can do those calculations for you. It's not difficult. I happen to have a daughter that lives out in British Columbia, and here's this kind of fortuitous meeting kind of deal. I was out there a couple of years ago. Anybody that knows me knows I love the outdoors, love to go fishing and camping and that kind of thing. So I was out there on one of my many fishing trips out to BC, and some of her friends were with us. And Stephen Emsley, he and his brother, so Stephen's a friend of my daughter. He and his brother started 10 Tree Clothing. I don't know anybody who knows 10 Tree. A couple of people do. So I get to know Stephen, and I hear about 10 Tree. Honestly, I didn't know anything about them until we're sitting on a fishing boat, right? We start talking. Well, that's kind of interesting. Long story short, fast forward 2 years. Last fall, Jonathan, my business partner, sitting here in the front. We were talking about it. We thought, well, there's an interesting twist here. We weren't sure what it was. I got talking to Stephen a little more and said, hey, look, I got this idea. We would like to, so those who don't know 10 Tree, the basic thing is you buy an article of their clothing, And for every article of clothing that you buy, you get a little token that's attached to it. And that token has a number on. You go online, you plug the number in, they plant 10 trees for you in one of their big tree plantings that they do all over the world. So, we were trying to figure out what that connection is. And so I learned very rapidly everything and anything and most things I never even expected to know about carbon sequestration and trees on a really quick journey learning all about that, and figured, okay, there's a really simple match here. When we do an energy conservation project for a customer, they're going to cut back so much on their greenhouse gas emissions, and then we will invest an equivalent amount in a tree planting on behalf of them that matches that carbon offset of that project that they invested in. So they invest in their piece of it, and we invest in a matching program. We just started the program in January. We're using the same reforestation company that 10 Tree uses, or one of them. And personally, back to the sort of alignment thing that gets you excited, and you help to sort of convey it out to people. It turns out that mangrove trees are like 4 times better than any other tree on the planet when it comes to, or any other plant matter on the planet when it comes to sequestering carbon. There's a whole bunch of reasons, I won't go into it. But it also has, sort of that kind of outdoorsy side. I mean, it's got a wildlife habitat sustainability angle to it, right? Fish, birds, all that kind of thing. So you got all these big resorts being built around the world, so shorelines are getting mangrove swamps ripped up, so they have to be replaced. So this is what we're doing now, is planting mangrove trees on behalf of our customers in obviously subtropical and tropical areas, which are also the biggest carbon sink. When you see the world's kind of global carbon sink cycle, how it works, those subtropical and tropical areas is where most of the carbon sink happens. And so this just happened to be, I wish I could claim it was some big grand strategy, and we had a visioning session and all that kind of thing. We did not. This just happened to line up. So my message is, you start your company, you focus on getting your company sustainable financially, and then, teeing off of Mark's comments here, then you take your corporate, if you're lucky enough to find that alignment, you take your corporate success and plow it back into the social responsibility. And I have no doubt, absolutely, we have had, as I mentioned, we just started this in January, so it's very new. But we have certainly had situations, and I know Jonathan would attest to this as well, that you're in the middle of discussions with customers, and they're doing that thing, they're watching your slide deck, and then you bring up the tree planting program thing and say, oh, this is interesting. I'm sure it's closed a couple of deals for us just in the last couple of months. So back to it's good business. We're not at the point yet of making that connection, those metrics between what we're investing and what the sales boost is, but it's clearly not fully philanthropic, but we're just fortunate enough that it aligns with what we're doing. So.